Hi, hello to all the amazing people out there who's watching this video. It really matters a lot that you are here. And welcome to my booktube channel. This is my second video and this is going to be my April wrap-up video. That is, I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in April. This is my first wrap-up video on booktube and I'm really looking forward to it. April was a good reading month. I mean, maybe not quantity-wise. I read 6 books, but yeah, quality-wise, it was really awesome. The first book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I read in mid-April, and it was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Now, this book is very popular and Ishiguro is obviously very famous. If you have not heard about him or if you are not acquainted with his works, let me tell you something about him. So he is basically a British author of Japanese origin and he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 2017. And Never Let Me Go is one of his popular works. And his works tend to play a lot around the memories of the characters. So in Never Let Me Go, we are following the story of Katty H. The story is being built around Katty H's memories. She is digging into her memories, she is recalling her past. The story begins with Katty H making this statement that she is a carer. Now, we do not know what a carer is. We do not know what she is doing out there in the present world, what her career is, what her profession is. So we are kind of following the story in the form of her memories from her boarding school days till the present when she is a carer. So the first half of the story deals with her boarding school days and we kind of witnessed her life there. From the very instant, it might not be that boarding school which is called Hailsome. It might seem like a very typical boarding school where students are attending classes, they are making friendships, they are being creative, they are making some sort of art. But as we go along the story, we get these hints and references which tells us that this boarding school is not a normal boarding school, that there is something very unusual about this school and the students in particular. For example, there are teachers in this school who are known as guardians. Now, why are they called guardians? So as we go along, like from the beginning itself, there are a lot of hints thrown in our way and we kind of can make our own guesses as we follow the course of the story. So along the story, we get a lot of hints and references regarding her boarding school and also what a carer is. And the ending is a bit sad. I know a lot of booktubers who have said that they have cried during the end. There are so many truths and harsh revelations that come out towards the end. Along the story, there's a lot of confusion that's built up in a really good way. I mean, Ishiguro's narration is very unique. The way he can draw up complexities around relationships of people, the way the story unfolds around relationships, around memories. There are a lot of implications. Certain things are not directly told. Like I said, there are so many hints. So yeah, readers tend to make a lot of guesses on their own, and that's the beauty of his narration. Readers have to kind of dig into those hints and kind of understand what's going on. That was the basic theme of the story, and this has a few science fiction elements, but they are not too complex. If someone is not into sci-fi, then they do not have to worry. There are a few elements of science fiction and also a few elements of dystopia in the story as well. The story is a mixture of science fiction and dystopia. And yeah, it was really a unique story and I would definitely recommend it. I haven't read anything like that. I mean, Ishiguro always have the most unique narration as well as unique plot lines. I mean, there are so many books which have unique plot lines, but what's more unique about Ishiguro is how he narrates the story, how he builds his story. So yeah, his narration style particularly makes the story more unique and strange in a good way. And I gave this book, I think it was almost 4 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it. I have read only two books from Ishiguro. One is this, Never Let Me Go, and the other one was The Remains of the Day, which is also a really good book. I like that book better than this one, but these two cannot be compared. They're both different books with different themes, except for the narration style. The narration style is kind of similar. It deals with the memories of the persons. And there's another book called Clara and the Sun that I think came out last year. This is the first book that came out after his winning the Nobel Prize. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into that one too, because a lot of people compare that with Never Let Me Go. And yeah, but before that, I think I will read his previous works, which are also very good, or so I have heard. And Never Let Me Go is also a movie, but I do not know much about the movie. I do not know if the movie resembles the book exactly. And I also do not know if it does justice to the book. I hope it does, but yeah, that's also another thing that people can check out. Yeah, so that was all about Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. The next book that I'm going to talk about is a middle grade fantasy book, which is also a part of a series, and I read the second book in the series, and it is called Wondersmith, and the whole book is known as Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This is a very light-hearted, entertaining book with a lot of magical and fun elements to it. It's a middle grade, so the magic system is not too complex, but it's very much fun and entertaining in a childlike way. And yeah, this is a book that this whole series will appeal to both children and adults alike. I'm going to give a brief overview of the first book because if I give an overview of the second book, I'll definitely spoil the story. So in the first book, we are following the story of Morrigan Crow, a child called Morrigan Crow who stays in this particular city called Wintersea Republic, and from the day she is born, she is cursed, and she is fated to die on a particular day called Eventide. And everyone is kind of expecting her death, including her very own family. But what happens is that on that particular day, instead of dying, a man comes to rescue her. The man is called Jupiter Knot, and he kinds of rescues her, takes her away from that place. He brings her to the town of Nevermore, the magical town of Nevermore. And there she has to attend trials or competitions in order to get a position in this prestigious society of Nevermore called the Wondrous Society. So it's very entertaining, and there are a lot of things that are going on. There's this competition going on, and Jupiter Knot, this man, he owns a hotel, and this hotel becomes a residence for Morrigan. She forms a lot of friendships with the staff and employees of the hotel, and it's so heartwarming to watch those friendships grow. And yeah, the Nevermore town is also very enchanting, full of magic, and there are different weird creatures in it. For example, a giant talking cat. So you get the gist. It's very magical in a fun way. And yeah, I would definitely continue with the series. The third book is out last year, and the whole series, I think it's going to be more than 6 books. I am not sure, but I would definitely like to continue with this series. And anyone who wants to get into a fun, childlike, middle grade series full of magic, definitely please read Nevermore. I think it's for anyone. I have only heard good things about this series, so yeah, you can definitely check this out. I gave both the books, I think, 4 stars. Yeah, both of them were equally good, and that was Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. The next book that I'm going to talk about is another middle grade fantasy book, and this is not a series. This is only a standalone, just one book, and it's called The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. And this is also a very wholesome book, very magical, and there are a lot of touching elements into it, because there are elements of sacrifice, which kind of makes it a lot sad. I mean it's not overtly sad, but there are a few sad elements to it. Unlike Nevermore, it has those touching elements. This book will also appeal to both children and adults alike. In fact, I think adults will be able to get the tone of the story better, because there are themes like sacrifice. So yeah, adults will be able to get the tone of sacrifice better than children. And so in this story, we are following this village, and this village, which is also called Protectorate, has a system of sacrificing children of the village to the witch who lives in the forest. So what they do is every year a particular home is chosen and a child is taken away from that home and it is dropped in the woods, and they expect that the witch is going to come at any time and take away their child, and they believe that if they do not carry out this system of sacrifice, the witch is going to destroy their village. But the villagers do not know one fact, is that this witch is a very good witch, very kind-hearted witch. What she does is that she comes to that spot every year where the child is being kept. She also doesn't know why every year a child is being abandoned in that very spot. She kind of rescues the child. There are a lot of wild animals and other bad creatures in the forest, and in a way she rescues the child and takes the child away to other cities and towns on the other end of the forest, and she delivers the child to a new family, and there the child gets a new home, and he or she grows up in that new family without remembering his or her old parents or that old village. So one day when this witch is performing this deed of rescuing a child, that is, she is rescuing this girl from that spot, and she kind of accidentally gives it magical powers. And so in a way to save the child or to help her in controlling her magical abilities, the witch adopts the child herself. She doesn't give it away to other cities or towns or villages. She adopts it herself. And the witch is not alone. She has two people who are kind of family to her. One is this poetic monster called Gluck, and he's a very sweet monster, if monsters can be sweet. And there is this little dragon called Firion. So these two people, along with the witch, they form a very sweet bonding with this child, and we kind of watch this family. We kind of watch their bonding, and also we are following the events of the village as well. There are certain bad things, certain sinister things are going on in the village, and we are kind of following those events as well. And so a lot of things are happening at the same time in the story. There are certain evil things as well, but at the core of everything, at the core of this magic and other stuff, there are these beautiful elements of sacrifice, friendship, family bonding, etc. And yeah, it's a very touching book. It will touch everyone's heart in all the right places, and I would definitely recommend this book to everyone. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Now, Sayaka Murata is a well-known contemporary author of Japan, and Convenience Store Woman is one of her well-known works, and this follows the story of a woman working in a convenience store. And this also, I really like the story. I give it 4 stars on Goodreads. I like the narration style. It was so well narrated. So we are following the story of this woman who works in this convenience store. So from the time she grew up, she was a very unusual child from the day she was born, and she never really fit in. But then she got this job in a convenience store at the age of 18, I guess, and from that time onwards till the age of 36, she is working in that convenience store. And the present timeline of the story is when she is 36 years of age. She was very unusual, like I said, but the time she got this job in this store, she got a rhythm in her life. She kind of adapted to her environment and all the society life with the help of this convenience store. In a way, the convenience store helped her in a lot of things, and she in turn helped the convenience store to grow. She was very well adapted to the convenience store, and it kind of became her life, and she is kind of happy there till now. But friends and family around her find it very odd that she is in this temporary job for so many years, and she is not married, she is not in a relationship, she doesn't have kids. Basically, she's not doing all the normal things that a society expects a single woman of her age to do. So this story highlights those things. This story highlights the societal conventions or the societal pressures on a woman or on any person in particular. So I like the way how the author Sayaka Murata, she compares the convenience store to the society life. For example, in the convenience store, there is this manual which the employees have to follow. There are certain rules in the manual about how they should greet their customers, how they should speak to them so as to please the customers, how they should attend to their needs. So in the story also it is referred how in the society life, in the normal society, there is this invisible manual that has a lot of rules and instructions and conventions that a person of the society has to follow. If he or she does not follow those rules, no matter how he or she is in real life, how good she is, or how happy he or she is in real life, the society will always look down on them, will not accept them as part of the society if they do not fulfill these conventions. It's a good thing if people are doing those normal things. It's a good thing if they are getting married, getting a good job, having children. These are good things. But what the story wants to focus on is that how society is kind of obsessed with these so-called normal things. For example, if a woman is past her marital age for some reason, or if she is not having children or is unable to have children, the society will always look down on her, no matter what kind of a person she is, or if she is kind of doing her job well or she is happy in her life, the society will not accept her as a part of the society and will always find her odd. So that was the basic theme or idea behind the convenience store woman. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Ghachar Ghochar by Vivek Shambhag. Now this book also I have seen this for a few years. I mean, so many people seem to like this book. I have seen it in BookTube and Bookstagram as well. And yeah, I thought I would like this book, but it kind of exceeded my expectations. I really, really liked it. It was so brilliantly narrated. Again, in the story also, I liked the narration style. I like the way how in just a few pages the author could comprise so many things about this family. In this book, we are following the story of this family who resides in the city of Bangalore, India. And we kind of watch the changing family dynamic as the family goes from being very poor to becoming suddenly very rich. And so we see a lot of changes that's going on in the family. And like I said, this book is a very short book, so within a few pages Vivek Shambhag has incorporated so many things. Like we get to know what the status of each person in the family is and how it's changing, how the relationships are changing, what is the position of each member in that family. So there are a lot of things that are happening and a lot of things are being implied also. Like so many things are not directly said, but the way it's narrated, we kind of get to know what's happening in the family. And the ending is so vague. It was so, I liked the ending. I don't know if everyone is going to like this sort of ending because it was so open-ended. I mean, there are so many things for the reader to guess, but I think for the tone of the story, the ending was really well suited. So yeah, this ending was something that I was still thinking after finishing the story. This is originally written in Kannada and being translated to English by Srinath Parur. The translator has also done a very good job. And yeah, I forgot to mention one thing. So here we are basically following the perspective of one of the sons of the family. There are two sons in the family. This son, he kind of always goes to this cafe to find some solace and to talk to this waiter over there. And he kind of reflects on their family, on the changing aspects of their family, and we kind of see the story through his eyes. So yeah, it was a really, really good book, and I definitely recommend it. Please do read it. Final book that I'm going to talk about is Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. Now, this is the only physical book that I read in April. The other books were ebooks. I read them all on my Kindle. I read a lot of Kindle books these days. I love physical books from my whole heart, but it has become a lot more convenient to read on Kindle these days. So yeah, but I'm very happy to get my hands on this copy. It was a piece of art. This was such a beautiful story, very unusual, but unusual in a good and mystique manner. And how to describe this book. How do you describe a piece of art? This was like a painting. This was like an abstract painting. In abstract painting also, there are a lot of references and hints. So many objects in that painting has an inherent meaning. It's not like we cannot just see those things from the outside. So many things are hidden. So in this book also, so many things are hidden and kind of implied. Everything has an inherent meaning, and the author uses a lot of imagery of physical objects to represent something else. Let me first tell you something about Yasunari Kawabata. So Yasunari Kawabata was a Japanese author, and he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1968, and he was the first Japanese author to receive such award. Snow Country is one of his well-known works. In this book, we are following the story of Shimamura, who is a citizen of Tokyo, Japan. And he kind of goes to this secluded place in the mountains called Snow Country. And in the Snow Country, in this place, this is a very strange place in the mountains, very lonely, and there is this woman who resides there who's known as Komoko, who Shimamura has a relationship with. And this Komoko has recently become a geisha, so we are kind of following the relationship of Shimamura and this lady Komoko. And like I said, this is very abstract, so the author uses certain physical elements or the imagery of certain physical elements to represent their relationship, to represent the characters. For example, this book is wholly metaphorical. Now, I'm not sure if everyone is going to like this book because it's so abstract and it does not have a conventional plot. The story is kind of character driven in a very abstract sort of way. The title itself is a metaphor. I mean, it is a place. Snow Country is definitely a place that exists, but again, at the same time, it's also a concept. The whole Snow Country as a concept, it is used to refer to the characters, to refer to the characters' emotions or their personality or their relationships. For example, the physical elements like snow and the changing atmosphere of Snow Country or the colors in Snow Country, all these things are used to represent the characters' inner emotions or inner state, their personalities and the relationships. Kawabata uses the imagery of these physical objects in the Snow Country to represent Shimamura or Komoko's characteristics or their personalities or their relationship. We kind of see the story, we kind of see the nature of the relationships through these references of physical objects, through the imagery of these physical objects. If we just look the story from the outside, the true beauty or essence of the book would be missed, because the essence lies in those references. It lies in those imagery of those physical objects that have an inherent meaning, that kind of shows us how the people are or how the relationship are. So yeah, to really understand the beauty of the story, one has to dig into those references. I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. It deserves many more stars. And Kawabata, I have heard of another Kawabata's book called 1,000 Cranes, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that one as well. And there are other books by Kawabata also. I do not know all the names. And it was a very different experience reading Snow Country. It was such a short book, but this is not something that's to be rushed. It should be read slowly, kind of absorbing all the elements or absorbing the essence of the story. So we have come to the end of this video, and thank you to anyone who has watched this video till the end. It means a lot, and I hope to come out with another video soon. And I really hope you're well and safe and taking care of yourself and taking care of your family and holding on to your loved ones and holding on to all those things that keep you sane. I wish you well, and yeah, I'll come back with another video soon. Till then, do take care and goodbye. Have a good night, have a good evening, have a good day. See you soon and goodbye.